If God were to tell you to do something easy, would you do it? What about if he told you to do something extremely hard? Would you be willing to be inconvenienced for God? To step out of your comfort zone, to step out of the ordinary in order to see something extraordinary that God can do? I want you to tune in as I invite you and God invites you to step out of the ordinary in order to see the extraordinary. A little over a year ago, I shared a video that was entitled Stepping Out of the Ordinary. So I would encourage you that if you have not seen that video, to stop watching this right now and click on the link below. Because what I'm going to be talking about today is related to that video. But in order to understand, you need to watch the original one first. Because there were some things that I said and some things that I meant to say, that I forgot to say, But I revisited that video this past week, and I did notice that there were some things that I forgot to say, and that was because I did not read a little bit further. So to give you a recap of what goes on in this passage, it is actually 2 Kings chapter 5. I believe it's verses 1 through 17, maybe verse 18 as well. But the king has a commander whose name is Naaman. Naaman is described as a mighty warrior. And as a mighty warrior, he has achieved many victories for this king. However, there is one thing that he runs into that even his military expertise cannot defeat. And it was leprosy. Naaman was a leper, and he wanted so bad to get rid of his leprosy. And so he had a servant girl, of course, which he got from war and capturing and all that. But he had a servant girl that literally said, "I wish that my master would go see the man of God." And so, of course, he finally gets to go and see Elisha, the man of God. And Elisha tells him something for him that is completely out of the ordinary. He tells him, "Go to the Jordan River, and I want you to dip yourself in there 7 times. So, of course, he goes into a rage. But he also says this, and these are some verses that I highlighted, and I want to read them to you. In verse 12, he says, "Aren't the rivers of Damascus, the Albania, and Raphar better than any of the rivers of Israel? Shouldn't I wash in them and be healed?" He wanted to stay in his comfort zone. He wanted to stay where it was convenient. Of course, there was a rift in Israel going on here with the divided kingdoms. And he wanted to stay where it was comfortable and convenient for him. However, Elisha told him, "I need you to go to the Jordan River and dip in there 7 times. And of course, he didn't want to do it. But look at the response of his soldiers. His soldiers told him in verse 13, "Sir, if the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? And you should certainly obey him when he says simply, 'Go and wash and be cured.'" Now, those 2 words that I highlighted here, difficult and simple. Whether it seems easy or difficult, are you willing to be inconvenienced for God? You see, in order to see the miraculous for Naaman, Naaman not only had to trust God at his word, but he also had to take God at his word. If he was very serious about being healed, he not only had to trust God in that if I go to the Jordan River, I will be healed, that you can heal me of my leprosy. He not only had to trust God with his word, but he had to take God at his word and actually go to the Jordan River. And that's exactly what he did. And of course, he goes to the Jordan River, and the Bible tells us that he dipped 7 times. And when he came out of the water, he had skin like a newborn baby. But remember what I said. God always has a plan and a purpose that only we can see. And so I want you to look at I want to read verse 15 to you. Because this was the plan and the purpose for Naaman, that God had for Naaman. Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. And then he goes on to say in verse 17, I will never again offer burnt offerings or sacrifices to any other God except the Lord. That statement in and of itself is so big, because Israel dealt for a long time with spiritual idolatry and going after idols and other gods, except coming back to the Lord. And Naaman says that there is no other God but the God of Israel. And I am not going to sacrifice to any other God than this God, the God of Israel, the true God. And so think about what has happened here. Someone who was a warrior became a worshiper of God, a true worshiper of God. Someone who was a soldier became someone who would serve the Lord. Someone who was once leprous, after being healed of his leprosy, completely became loyal to God. And someone who was the commander of an army suddenly became committed to the Lord. In order for us to see that, we must be willing to be inconvenienced by God and for God, to break out and to step out of our comfort zone, to cast away any sin, to cast away any bad behavior, and even so, to trust God at his word and to take God at his word. And so my one question to you today is this: would you be willing to step out of the ordinary in order to see the extraordinary that God can and wants to do in your life? Because God always has a bigger plan and a purpose than what we can see in front of us. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and share if this video encouraged you. And to see more encouraging videos and posts, subscribe to my channel and follow me on social. See you guys next time.